Anna sits at the corner table of the quiet cafe, her hands wrapped around a warm cup of tea, and she watches the rain streak the windows, noticing how each droplet distorts the world outside just enough to make it feel unfamiliar. And she reflects on how long it has been since she felt this suspended kind of anticipation, the delicate kind that lives somewhere between hope and fear. Because across the room, Michael arrives, carrying an umbrella that drips onto the floor. And though his entrance is ordinary, there is an unmistakable weight in the way he pauses, scanning the room until their eyes meet. And in that instant, the air between them thickens, charged with a history neither of them has fully voiced. A history of shared laughter, brief misunderstandings, and nights spent talking until the early hours before circumstances pulled them apart. And Anna feels a sudden flutter, a reminder that emotions can linger quietly even when distance and time try to silence them. And as Michael approaches, she notices the subtle changes in him, the way his shoulders have broadened, the lines around his eyes hinting at moments of struggle she was never privy to, but also the familiar warmth of his gaze that seems to recognize her even without words. And in that recognition, a memory surfaces of a winter evening when they walked under the streetlights, sharing secrets that felt like promises, promises they were too young to fully understand. And now, sitting across from him, she senses that some of those promises are still alive, tucked beneath layers of fear, pride, and circumstance, waiting for acknowledgement. And Michael's voice, quiet but steady, breaks through her reverie as he says her name, and she notices how much she wants to hear it, not as a casual greeting, but as a signal that the distance, the years, the mistakes, none of it has erased what was once undeniable. And as they speak, slowly, deliberately, Anna realizes that love is not always about perfect timing or grand gestures, but about presence, about returning when the heart still remembers. And in that shared silence between sentences, in the comfortable pauses and subtle glances, they both sense that this meeting is not a conclusion nor a fresh start, but the gentle rekindling of a connection that has quietly endured, shaping them both in ways neither could have predicted. And as rain continues to streak the window, blurring the outside world, Anna and Michael sit together, aware that the journey of love is not linear, but circular, patient, and waiting for those willing to notice it, to inhabit it, and to acknowledge it again with honesty and care. Michael notices the way Anna's fingers trace the rim of her cup, a small, unconscious gesture that speaks volumes about her inner tension, and he feels a mix of admiration and hesitation, remembering all the moments they misread each other, all the words left unsaid, the quiet misunderstandings that stretched over months and years. And he wonders if this meeting will finally allow them to inhabit the space between them without fear, without pretense, without the weight of old expectations. And Anna, sensing his gaze, feels a warmth that spreads slowly through her chest, a delicate reassurance that despite the time apart, their connection has not frayed, that the threads that once bound them still exist, albeit thinner, requiring attention, care, and patience. And as he speaks of small things, the mundane details of his life, the routines that have anchored him, the subtle changes he has noticed in the world, she listens with a quiet intensity, aware that the simplicity of these words carries a depth that words alone cannot capture. And she remembers how often love is mistaken for grand gestures, for dramatic declarations, when in truth it often resides in the pauses, in the attentiveness, in the willingness to be present with another human being, imperfect, flawed, and searching. And as their conversation continues, they begin to rediscover the rhythm of their communication, the silent language of shared glances, the unspoken understanding that grew from years of knowing each other. And Anna notices the familiar curve of Michael's smile, the way it softens when he talks about moments that matter to him. And she realizes that the heart remembers long after the mind tries to rationalize distance, that love can endure not because it is flawless, but because it survives in quiet recognition, in patient observation, in the courage to return when circumstances once pulled them apart. And in that awareness, both feel a gentle shift, the beginning of something delicate and real, a possibility that has always existed, waiting for them to inhabit it again. As the rain softens outside, Anna becomes aware of how the familiar scent of the cafe, warm wood, coffee, and faint vanilla, seems to anchor her to this moment, making the past feel closer, more tangible, without overwhelming the present. And she notices how Michael's presence has changed, not in ways that are loud or dramatic, but in the subtle steadiness of his posture, the calm in his voice, the way he listens without interruption, as if he has learned patience through the years they spent apart. And this steadiness draws her in, reminding her that love is not only passion and intensity, but also quiet constancy, the kind that survives absence and adapts to time. And she reflects on all the moments they could have lost, the conversations that went unsaid, the nights spent apart, thinking the other had moved on, and realizes that the emotional weight of absence has not diminished her feelings, it has only refined them, shaping a deeper awareness of what truly matters. And Michael, noticing how she seems caught in thought, reaches out gently, letting his hand hover near hers without pressing, allowing the possibility of touch without forcing it. And she feels a flutter of anticipation, a mixture of nervousness and longing, recognizing that vulnerability is part of this delicate reconciliation, that to open to someone after years of separation requires both courage and trust. And as they exchange stories, laughter, and pauses filled with silent recognition, Anna realizes that intimacy is not built overnight, but emerges in repeated acts of presence, in the patience to witness each other fully. And in this understanding, both begin to sense that the meeting is more than a simple reunion. It is the rekindling of a shared emotional space, a gentle reawakening of connection, tender yet resilient, fragile yet enduring. And as the cafe hums quietly around them, they sit side by side, aware that the past shapes them but does not define them, and that love, like the rain outside, continues to fall and shape their lives in ways both visible and unseen. Michael notices a flicker of hesitation in Anna's eyes as she smiles, and he understands that beneath the surface of their conversation lies years of unspoken questions, quiet fears, and the awareness that returning to each other is not simple, that love is never purely nostalgic, but always entwined at the present. And Anna feels the weight of that recognition too, sensing that the small pauses, the gentle glances, the careful choices of words are all part of rebuilding something delicate, something that has endured time and distance, but now requires conscious attention. And as they talk about the mundane, the books they've read, the streets they've walked, the small triumphs and quiet failures of their separate lives, they discover a rhythm that feels familiar yet different, a dance of intimacy that acknowledges who they were and who they have become. And Anna realizes that the excitement she once sought in romance has been replaced by something steadier, richer, more grounded. The kind of connection that allows silence to coexist with laughter, tension to coexist with understanding, and longing to coexist with patience. And Michael, noticing how she leans slightly forward when recounting small joys, senses the same shift within himself, a softening of defenses, a willingness to inhabit vulnerability without fear of immediate resolution. And in that mutual recognition, they both begin to understand that love is less about recapturing a past moment than about creating shared moments that honor the distance they have traveled separately, moments that allow tenderness, care, and presence to flourish without expectation. And as the rain outside begins to taper into a soft drizzle, the cafe becomes a quiet sanctuary, a space where history, desire, and attention converge, allowing both Anna and Michael to feel seen, understood, and quietly hopeful for what might come next, without pressure, without pretense, simply through the act of being together, fully present. As the afternoon light fades into evening, Anna notices the subtle changes in Michael's expression, the way his eyes soften when he talks about small, seemingly insignificant memories, the way his fingers drum lightly on the table when he hesitates, the gentle tilt of his head as if he's listening not only to her words, but to the unspoken currents beneath them. And she feels a warmth spread slowly through her chest, a mixture of relief, longing, and cautious hope, because she realizes that the connection between them has never truly been broken, only dormant, waiting for attention. And Michael senses it too, the quiet but undeniable pull that has endured despite distance and time, a bond shaped not by perfection, but by the accumulation of shared understanding and subtle emotional truth. And as they speak of moments they both missed, the roads they chose separately, the fears that kept them apart, they find themselves laughing softly, acknowledging the irony and beauty of how life works. And Anna notices how effortless it feels to be with them now, how the usual self-consciousness and caution dissolve in the presence of genuine recognition. And she reflects that love is not always about grand gestures or dramatic confessions, but about the willingness to return, to witness each other's growth, to honor the past without being trapped by it. And Michael, noticing her gaze linger, senses the same truth, that the delicate, careful attention they give each other in this moment may be the strongest affirmation of love they have ever experienced. And in that mutual awareness, the distance, the years, and the challenges fade into the background, leaving only the possibility of connection, renewed and quietly resilient, unfolding slowly like the rhythm of rain against the cafe windows outside. As the evening deepens, Anna becomes aware of the subtle intimacy growing between them, not through words or declarations, but through shared glances, comfortable silences, and the unspoken understanding that neither is rushing toward anything. And she notices how Michael's presence feels steady, anchoring her in a way she hasn't felt in years, reminding her that love can be patient, that it doesn't always demand immediate resolution or constant intensity. And Michael, in turn, feels a softening of old anxieties, a sense that he no longer needs to perform, to prove, or to anticipate every emotional beat, because being here with Anna is enough, and they both realize that the depth of their bond is measured not by passion or drama, but by the quiet constancy of attention, by the willingness to witness and be witnessed without judgment. And as they discuss small, everyday details, the books they read, the streets they walk, the meals they cook, they discover a rhythm of connection that feels both familiar and new, a delicate dance shaped by years apart, but now enriched by experience and awareness. And Anna notices how her heart responds to the subtleties of his expression, the gentle inflections in his voice, the small gestures that convey care and thoughtfulness. And she feels a mixture of longing and reassurance, understanding that love's endurance is not always visible, but exists in the accumulation of these small, intentional acts. And Michael senses the same truth, recognizing that this moment, unhurried and attentive, holds more significance than any dramatic declaration ever could. And together, they begin to inhabit a space where past misunderstandings dissolve, present awareness deepens, and the future, though uncertain, feels tenderly possible, a shared emotional landscape waiting to be explored gently, honestly, and with patient care. As the night settles around the cafe, Anna notices the way the dim light catches Michael's features, softening the edges of his face and revealing a quiet vulnerability she hadn't allowed herself to see before. And she feels a mixture of awe and tenderness, realizing that the man sitting across from her is both familiar and transformed, shaped by years of distance, experiences, and small personal victories. And Michael notices the subtle changes in Anna as well. The way her eyes hold a calm patience now, the way her laughter is quieter, yet richer, carrying the weight of reflection and resilience. And in that mutual observation, they both sense a profound truth, that love is not just an emotion or a memory, but a living presence that grows and shifts alongside the people who inhabit it. And Anna remembers the nights they spent together years ago, full of energy and raw intensity, and contrasts them with this moment of quiet, deliberate connection, realizing that this kind of love, tempered by time and reflection, is deeper and more sustaining than the fleeting passion they once relied upon. And Michael, noticing her gaze linger, feels a warmth that is equal parts comfort and anticipation, the awareness that intimacy can exist in patience as much as in excitement. And as they exchange stories of small joys, missed chances, and lessons learned, they begin to weave a new rhythm of understanding where past hurts are acknowledged but no longer define them. And both feel the subtle thrill of possibility, not in grand gestures, but in the way they can now sit together, unguarded, noticing each other's presence. And as the cafe empties and the rain continues softly outside, Anna and Michael realize that love's endurance is measured not by years apart or dramatic events, but by the courage to return, to witness, and to inhabit each other's worlds again with honesty, care, and patient attention. And in that shared awareness, a quiet hope blooms, fragile yet persistent, promising that what they have rediscovered may slowly unfold into something lasting, tender, and real. And as the cafe empties and the rain outside softens to a gentle drizzle, Anna and Michael sit in a comfortable silence, aware that nothing has been rushed, nothing forced, and that this reunion is not a conclusion, but the beginning of something quietly profound. A space where vulnerability is safe, presence is enough, and their connection can grow without pressure. And Anna feels a lightness she hasn't known in years, the realization that love doesn't always require dramatic gestures or perfect timing, only honesty, attention, and the willingness to return. And Michael senses the same truth, that the heart remembers what the mind sometimes forgets, that time and distance cannot erase what is genuine. And in this shared understanding, both feel a steady warmth, a recognition that they are not reclaiming the past, nor defining the future, but inhabiting a tender, authentic present. And as they rise to leave, their hands brush briefly, a touch full of meaning, a subtle promise of patient care and attentiveness. And with that simple gesture, they step out into the night together, carrying a quiet hope that whatever comes next, they will navigate it side by side, with honesty, respect, and a love that has endured even through years of absence.